Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Let me know who's here. For those of you who've been involved in the Accelerate Literacy, a structured linguistic literacy summit, it may have been a long day, but I'd like to wrap up with a little fun, shall we? Having a dialogue. There's a great chat in the summit. And yet there may be things that are outstanding that you want to have more discussion about. So that's what I thought I'd do. I'd hop on here and talk about what's what with the summit. Hi, Anna. Bright and early for you. Got to move there we go. Okay, 9 a.m. I'm just realizing I need to share this into our group. If you don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Marnie Ginsberg of Reading Simplified, and we work at Reading Simplified to streamline instruction and accelerate students' reading achievement. So we are one of several hosts of the Accelerate Literacy Summit. A lot of different program creators and practitioners have been collaborating to elevate the concepts and research and successes behind approaches like Reading Simplified. We are calling it structured linguistic literacy. Sometimes it's called speech to print or linguistic phonics. Depending on what continent you're on, you may hear different things. So we're trying this name because it really emphasized that it is structured, but it's also focused on linguistics, the language system. And that's how we learn to read. So I'm checking to see if this is going live. Don't even see it. Where are you guys coming in from? Anna and like which platform? And Jeannie or Jean. Hey, Kathy, thanks for being here. I may be having a little snafu in my system. Sorry about that. So what do you want to talk about? What questions did you have? What doubts? YouTube. You aren't live on Facebook. Well, that's funky. Why would that have happened? There's not a lot that I can think of that I can do now. I don't know what to do if I'm not live here. So it'll just be a YouTube convo. Thank you for being here. I hope you got to see, how many of you got to see Dr. Mark Seidensberg's talk? Whoa. It was, it was a big deal. He said some really profound things. If you've moved over from balanced literacy to structured literacy, or if you've picked up any traditional phonics programs or a Norton Gillingham program, he may have said some things that were unexpected. So I thought that would be really important to hash that out because he is a preeminent reading researcher. He's done a lot of the groundwork research on how we know how the brain learns to read. And if you haven't read his book, Language at the Speed of Sight, I highly recommend it. He's going to talk about a lot of these elements, but I think the book was published in 2017, and it was part of the beginning of the wave of science of reading movement. But some of the nuances of his arguments that are in that book about statistical learning and implicit and putting all the pieces together, they were kind of lost because I think we have to go with the programs we have, and the programs we had may not have fully embraced the contemporary science, which is what we think here at Read Simplified. So that makes sense to Kathy. Thank you. And good morning, Mim. So give me a thumbs up if you saw Seidenberg's talk already. He put his slides up on his website, seidenbergreading.net. And I'd love to see it get more discussion because the stuff that's undergirding his talk also undergirds Read Simplified and all the other structured linguistic literacy programs that are part of this summit. So he started off by saying, and pop in a question or a comment. He started off by saying, movement's made a big change, and this is good, but maybe we need to recalibrate a little bit. Some of it is just going a little too far. That's my terminology. And so let's think about ways to recalibrate. Oh, thank you, Sherry. That's kind. I'm feeling better. Oh my gosh, I just lost my little... See that little guy down there? Where did he go? Come on, stop being shy. Just kind of disappeared. Oh, there he goes again. I am not having technical luck today. Yeah, so if we're going to recalibrate, how are we going to recalibrate? And one of the major things he thinks is important to say is that reading instruction is much less about teaching all the components, and it's more about cracking the code. Thank you, Kathy. Good point. His paper is out there too. If you are reading Simplifier, you probably agree with that concept, right? That the code is more important than phonemic awareness. The code is more important. Code cracking is even more important than letter sound knowledge. You got to have letter sound knowledge. You got to have the phonemic awareness. But really, it's putting it into play, playing the game, and not just practice or drills. And the good news is that we actually don't have to teach all the things that a student knows or a reader knows, because he said one of the things that probably seems most outlandish, most of the learning that we do as readers is implicit. This is probably shocking for those of you who think that the science of reading movement is all about elevating explicit instruction, because that was a major part of it. Balanced literacy was not an explicit approach to teaching the code. I can't get my little, trying over and over again, get my headline down back. Bye-bye headline. Okay. And Mark Seidenberg had a big impact in getting 3Qing ousted. His book talks about how little evidence there is for this concept of that you can look at the picture, look at the context, look at the first letter, and learn how to read. That is not how a good reader learns to read. We have to pay attention to the code, and we have to crack the code, we have to process the code. So it may seem surprising to hear someone who said those types of things in his book so stridently and accurately to then also say, well, yes, but explicit is important, and it gets the system working. It gets the code breaking ability to kick in, but then getting to escape velocity with that little rocket image, that only happens with implicit learning. And the research on that says that it's implicit learning of phonics spellings, it's implicit learning of words, and more. Word parts, shun and pre, those kinds of things can be implicitly learned. And morphology. So, ooh, you were up early, Anna. Extra credit. He was so spot on. For those of you who've been working as practitioners for a long time, like myself, I hope it's gratifying to see these two things merge together. So, yeah, definitely check out Dr. Seidenberg's talk. I thought it was the biggie, and for the whole event, probably the most important thing. And then I shared the research on different approaches, and I talked about 3 categories of evidence that Keith Stanovich and Paula Stanovich both said should count as evidence for us as practitioners to put into play. The evidence from real school data, the evidence from experiments, and the evidence from principles of research. So then I went through and talked about, hey, in the structured linguistic literacy community, we've got number 1, we've got number 2, kind of more number 2 than most, And we've got number 3. So we are calling here at the summit for people to be curious and to not discard structured linguistic literacy approaches as being without research, because there's actually a pretty decent circumstantial case. We have lots of evidence from different programs of standardized test scores. We have some experiments. We have the experiments from Montessori, ADD or Linda Mood Bell, lots of those. We have the experiments and brain scans from phonographics, experiments from Read Write Type, and experiments from the targeted reading intervention, which is the predecessor to Reading Simplified that I led the development of. So that's a good talk to review if you need to have some arguments for why, okay, yeah, you get good results with your kids, but is there research behind it? Hopefully that'll give you the defense that, yeah, there is. Kathy's asking a good question. Is the implicit-explicit issue impacted by reading difficulties like dyslexia? Have there been any studies on this? Yes, there have been studies that have demonstrated, not many, but a couple, I think probably more than one. I know for sure I've seen one that directly tested this. And the evidence was, yes, indeed, as you would expect, a dyslexic learner seems to be weaker at implicit learning. So in a Reading Simplified context, I don't take that to mean, oh, now I'm going to switch to explicit instruction. I take that to mean, oh, I've got to do more reps. Because I don't want to switch into adding a lot of rules. I don't want to switch into slowing down. They need access to the code. I don't want to add a cognitive load. So if you're just tuning in, we're a small group because tech seemed to break, and I'm not going live here on Facebook, which seems to be a larger contingent of our followers. So it's just you faithful here at YouTube, and I'd love to be discussing what's interesting or provocative or disturbing even, curiosity provoking from the summit. I dropped the link in the here it is again. If you haven't joined the summit, you can still join. And today's talks, it's day 2. Technically, it's kind of like day 1. Yesterday was like a preview day with the documentary and a discussion of the documentary. Today's the first full day of talks. If you haven't jumped in and gotten the free ticket, you can still watch today's sessions for several more hours. They're available for free for 24 hours. And then if you can't squeeze it in 24 hours, you can also buy the ticket, and then you'd have many years of access. Kathy says, I'm a novice, 3 years tutoring. Awesome. We need so many tutors right now. But it seems my dyslexic students are very quick to pick up patterns, and much of the code cracking is related to letter sound patterns. Interesting. Good. Yeah, my experience with dyslexic students. Okay, so in general, in a Reading Simplified setting, I typically get most kids to grade level in 12 hours of instruction or less. And we have a 12-level scope and sequence. We call it our streamlined pathway. It typically means that we'll spend about 1 week on each step. And by the time we get to the 12th one, we've taught most of the code that's relevant. Back to Mark Seidenberg's point, we're not teaching all of it. We're teaching the high frequency things and sufficient to induce the self-teaching theory, the self-teaching mechanism, the implicit learning that takes over that he was talking about. However, if it's a student who's not just labeled dyslexia because of dysteachia, but is truly dyslexic and has really a difficult time with maybe phonological processing or learning orthography or spellings. Those are 2 kind of distinct and sometimes overlapping issues. If they have those, then I can still teach them to decode pretty quickly. So I agree with you. Like it's not like they can't still learn the same way that the other students do. So a student who's dyslexic, I might think that they were going to learn to decode in like 18 hours or 24 hours as opposed to 12. But if they're deeply dyslexic, they can learn to decode, and we're going to read real books really quickly, but we might take many more weeks or even months to become fluent. Yay, Catherine! So good to hear that you are moving away from balanced literacy. UFly has I'm hearing great results. They've done some tests from it, and I'm hearing good results across the country. So I think you will still get good results. And if you can filter in a few reading simplified diagnostic questions, you might even be able to accelerate them further. For instance, we asked 2 diagnostic questions when we map out word work progression. We were here today, where are we going to go tomorrow? We don't just turn the page and go to the next lesson. We ask, can I challenge my students with a higher phonemic difficulty level? Can I add more letter sounds? So we're going to pick lists for a word chain activity we call Switch It, based on those 2 diagnostic criteria, and that enables us to level up more rapidly. So if you're joining in and you have questions about the summit, let me know. I haven't spoken about all the other things. There were many other good sessions. Especially we had Miriam Fine and Aaron Duncan and Harriet Janettos talk about what is structured linguistic literacy and give their different perspectives on it. Miriam Fine talked about what's in this box of things that we're talking. She was saying sometimes in education we have a Humpty Dumptyism problem, like what do we call it, which is is it speech to print? Is it linguistic phonics? Is it structured linguistic literacy? Well, let's not worry about the label, but this thing that we kind of all seem to know exists. It's different from the mainstream. She's going to call it the Y files, and she put a lot of different criteria into that bucket, and it really aligns well with what I've seen in Reading Simplified. And then Erin Duncan is leading phonographics right now, and she gave a great explanation of the history and the research and of phonographics, and then also what are the salient features. And she knows that really well, and it's moving to hear her story about I didn't know and then I did know, which is very familiar to many of us here in this community. And then Harriet did probably more in depth about, these are the salient features, and she wove in research from different voices like Marianne Wolfe. And then we ended the day with Lindsay Journo talking about shifting mindsets, and she talked about some of the hard things about shifting mindsets. She also talked additionally about what are some of the features of these structured linguistic literacy approaches that are distinct. And then the whole thing was wrapped up with a panel talking about their EBLI journey, leaders and teachers who shared their amazement at the growth they got with this type of approach and some of the things that it took to get this to be accomplished. So those are the things that were big ideas from the event. So what did you want to talk about? I see Kathy's mentioned her student is unschooled. Ooh, that can be hairy. It could be good. It depends. But this sounds not so good. He came to you unable to read. The cat sat on the mat. He has extreme dysgraphia and was unable to write or recite the alphabet. He is now reading. He is now reading at the 5th grade level. That's awesome. Whoa. So that's basically 6 years growth, really, because you can't read cat on the hat. Cat sat on the mat. You're not even primer. From today, I'm really biased. I think my talk is important because it's talking about the research. And then the rest, I think that's broadly applicable. And then the rest kind of depends on what it is that you need. You need to defend this approach? Do you want to learn more about the nuances of it? What's interesting to you? So, because I think they were all really strong for what they were aiming for. Dr. Devin Kernst is going to be our keynote tomorrow. He has an interesting article in the Reading Teacher that says something like, cognitive science says we don't really need to teach rules to read. It's not quite the title. And then he's talking tomorrow on the cognitive science of learning to read in English, the speech-print connection. Okay, Kathy, you want to be the best tutor you can be. Well, I think that Miriam Fines might be the most applicable. And then we're going to get into more, I think some more practical things will come later down the line. Like Nora's on day 3, we'll talk about multisyllable word teaching. Jennifer Sarah on day 4 is going to show us a lot of videos of how to just implement a structured linguistic literacy approach. We've got an SLP on Friday, Leanne Dahl, if I'm saying her name right. And Leslie Loud on Friday is sharing writing, which is not something I lead with here at Reading Simplified. It's mostly let's teach them how to decode, and we use a writing or encoding activity to help with reading, and it can certainly carry us into composition, but we don't teach the steps to composition. So, and frankly, there are a lot of other talks that I don't know the nitty-gritty about, so I hope you'll give the titles a look over. If you guys haven't tried to, if you can buy the VIP ticket, then you'll have more time. You can watch it at your discretion. All right. I see it's kind of quieting down. Anything else that anybody wants to discuss? Questions? I know Anna listened. Looks kind of quiet. Well, we're a small group. Anybody know why my tech didn't work? I signed up to go live on both places. I clicked the same button I always do. Yeah, Jennifer, I was just saying, like, what's going on? I mean, I started here at YouTube and I just didn't want to hang up on my YouTube friends. So I think what I'll do is see if I can gen up on one for Facebook. Mim, thank you for being here. I'm still learning. Awesome. I hope we all are. I mean, that's really what a good teacher should be. I found the Reading Simplified programs 5 years ago, and it just made so much sense, and I have been using it ever since. Awesome. Okay, this is a good question, Kathy. In Reading Simplified, we teach the phonics on the streamline pathway. You notice there's some phonics that we don't include. You might be able to find DGE, for instance, but it's not really that important in our lists. You won't find the long U. You won't find lower frequency spellings of E, like EI as in weird. So we teach enough of the phonics to get the child code cracking, and then the rest of it they learn implicitly. I'm sure you've seen that. If you got your student a 5th or 6th grade level increase, you taught them how to read the O and various sounds. You taught them how to read the E, various sounds, etc. But you didn't teach them everything that they can now read. They learned a lot of that implicitly, and they do it through reading after you've engaged the system and you've got them going with how to crack the code. So that's one category. Like, you don't actually teach all the phonics. The other thing that we do in most programs that have a foundation of Diane McGinnis's work and Phonographics' work is we don't teach many labels or categories. I don't even generally use vowel or consonant with students. I certainly don't use long vowel, short vowel. I don't use diphthongs and R-controlled vowels. I don't need those labels in order to teach them how to crack the code. I don't teach phonic rules. So so I'm just kind of going through, these are things you don't actually have to teach explicitly, because implicitly the child's going to learn that a syllable that ends in Y is probably going to say E. Child's going to learn implicitly that a syllable ending in LE is probably just going to say ul. So less phonics, fewer labels, fewer categories, no rules, and no syllable types. Those are some things that I think are implied from what Dr. Seidenberg said, and that we don't do here in a structured linguistic literacy approach. What am I missing here? Anything you want to add to that? No worries. Facebook didn't alert you because it was broken. BP. I love that you're an assistant and still learning. It's awesome. Are you going to use Reading Simplified? I know you will do great. One of the tips I've been giving lately is to, first of all, as you know, in the main course, it says pick a child, at least one child, and do the activities with that child, building up a lesson plan gradually as you learn each section. Another thing that I think you could do is to start a thread in the teacher's lounge. Jennifer's in there answering questions. Let me know, Jennifer, what you think about this. So what if BP said, this is my student Jamie, pseudonym Jamie, and these are the things he can do. I've assessed him in this way, and I started him here on this pathway. This is what I did today. This is how he responded. What do you think? Or what? And then you ask questions too, or maybe you just say, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm headed. And then they respond to you. And then a few days later or next week, whenever you can get back to it, you go back to the same thread about Jamie and say, okay, remember Jamie? I did what you said, and now this is what happened. I'm thinking about doing this. And you get feedback. And so you're in that thread with a teaching assistant. You may get a different teaching assistant depending on what day of the week you're there, or me. But you'll have that thread that'll be your ongoing journey learning the system. So that is the way to get your students to do great, for you to become a great practitioner. A lot of other people rewatch videos of me working with kids. And if you have others in your life that are doing these similar activities and giving feedback, that's part of the gold. I hope it's true, Mim. I hope it's true. Catherine, yeah, okay, good point about that in terms of this question of explicit, implicit. One of the benefits of a structured linguistic approach like Reading Simplified is getting into real text quickly. I love that point. If we belabor it and take so long where everything is controlled and the students don't have the opportunity to be challenged by something they haven't learned before, and they don't have to use that set for variability or mispronunciation correction or what we call Flexit, then they don't develop that strategy early on, even though that's the main strategy that we all use when we attack an unfamiliar word. Recalibration, as Dr. Sardenberg was hinting at, is necessary. Good. Great points. Okay, Jennifer agrees. Yeah, start a thread and you can get a consistent assessment, ongoing consistent assessment and advice, assistance and advice. Oh, another good tip, definitely start with the assessment. So if you go into the main course of the Reading Simplified Academy and you go to the intro and then to the lesson that says Intro to the Reading Simplified Framework, and then go down to the snapshot and formal assessment and the San Diego, those two are going to be really good to help you choose where to start with your student, and then everything is diagnostic from there. Yes, Catherine is a fabulous longtime teaching assistant in the Teacher's Lounge as well, and she says the ongoing support is one of the greatest things about Reading Simplified. You don't have to go it alone. That's one of the ways I tried to make it streamlined. I don't teach you everything under the sun. that could go wrong, or that a 5-year-old needs versus a 25-year-old. We don't cover every little category because we have that support. You make some diagnostic decisions, you have some structures and principles and lessons, but then you can come to us to get help. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for participating in the summit. I'll drop the link one more time if you haven't signed up. You can watch the sessions for free for 24 hours, and then if you can't watch them within 24 hours, then make sure you purchase a ticket, and you can watch them for as long as we keep them afloat, which hopefully is many years. Hopefully we'll have another summit maybe 2 years from now. It was a lot of work. Working with a team, we got over 50 different speakers. Thank you, Jennifer. Woohoo. All right. I don't see anything, any new questions, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm also going to try to get on Facebook because I feel bad. I don't know what happened. It'll take me a little while to get the systems rolling if you want to join me over there. But I appreciate you for being here. Invite a friend to the summit. If you're already in the academy, then don't be a stranger, and please don't be shy either. Let us know how you're doing in the teacher's lounge. There are no dumb questions, and we've all started without knowing how to teach reading really, really well. Now the teaching assistants and I feel really confident about how we teach reading, and we can teach it well. And we keep seeing the same pattern with people, thousands of people that have gone through the academy, but the people that get the best results are the ones that actually implement, not just watch videos, and actually ask for some advice. So don't be a stranger. All right, everybody. Here's to making great readers.